The stars were burning bright, yet the planet below seemed dark and quiet. The war had been raging for years, and Earth's military forces were pushed to the brink. Max, a young soldier, had fought through countless battles, but none like this. His squad had been ambushed, and now he was alone. Stranded on a hostile planet far from Earth, Max was injured, his body aching from the wounds he had taken during the fight. His comrades were nowhere to be found. Max stumbled through the thick underbrush, his vision blurry and his steps unsteady. He was running on sheer willpower, his mind racing with thoughts of survival. But with each step, he felt weaker. Blood soaked through his uniform, and his breaths became shallow. He couldn't go much further. The planet's wild terrain offered little hope. Strange creatures roamed in the shadows, and the air was thick with the smell of something alien. Max had no idea where he was or how he was going to survive. The coms on his wrist had stopped working hours ago, and his last transmission had been lost. He was cut off from the rest of the world, and it felt like no one even knew he was alive. Just when he thought he might collapse, a figure appeared from the trees. It was a woman, tall, graceful, and unlike anyone Max had ever seen. She had a strange aura about her, her skin glowing softly under the alien sky. She wasn't human, but something in her eyes made Max believe she could help him. He tried to speak, but his voice failed him. He collapsed to the ground, too weak to stay upright. The woman knelt beside him, her movements fluid as though she had done this 100 times before. She spoke in a language Max didn't understand, but her tone was gentle, reassuring. She carefully examined his wounds, her fingers light as she checked for signs of infection. Max tried to protest, but his body was too weak to fight her off. "You're lucky," the woman said, her voice soft but firm. "Not many humans survive on this planet. But you are still alive, and that's enough for me to help." Max blinked. Trying to process her words, he was alive. It seemed impossible, but it was true. The woman was real, and she was offering him a chance to survive. But at what cost? He had no idea who she was or why she would help him. "A soldier from an enemy race? I'm not a threat," she said, noticing his fearful expression. "I only wish to help you." Her eyes were sincere, and there was a calmness about her that made Max feel a little safer. She pulled something from her belt, a small device that hummed with energy. She pressed it to his side, and a soft glow surrounded his wound. Max felt a strange warmth spreading through him. The pain eased, and he could breathe easier. "Rest," she instructed, her hand brushing his forehead. "You need to heal." Max wanted to argue, to ask her why she was helping him, but his body was exhausted. The warmth from the device filled him with a sense of peace, and soon he drifted into unconsciousness. When he awoke, the woman was still there, watching over him. The night had passed, and the sun was rising in the distance. Max tried to sit up, but felt a wave of dizziness. She was quick to steady him, her hands gentle but strong. "You're not alone anymore," she said, offering him a drink from a small flask. It smelled strange, but soothing. "I'll keep you safe until you're strong enough to leave." Max drank, feeling the liquid rejuvenate him. He had no idea what kind of alien technology she used to heal his wounds, but he was grateful. For the first time in what felt like forever, he allowed himself to relax. He had been so focused on surviving, on getting back to his people, that he hadn't considered what might happen next. He had no idea what this woman wanted from him, but something told him she wasn't his enemy as the days passed. The woman whose name he learned was Lyra taught him how to survive on the strange planet. She showed him how to find food, how to stay hidden from the planet's dangerous creatures, and how to stay alive. Lyra wasn't just a healer, she was a survivor. She had lived on this planet for years, long before the war had even begun. Knowledge of the land was vast, and she shared it freely with Max. In return, he taught her a little about his world, about Earth and the fight against the aliens who had invaded his home. Though they came from different worlds, there was a bond growing between them. Lyra spoke little about herself, but Max knew enough to understand that her people were not kind to humans. She had broken their laws by saving him, and that made her a target. Yet she continued to care for him, to help him recover, even when It meant putting herself in danger. As the days turned into weeks, Max's strength returned, and so did his desire to escape. He had to return to his people, to warn them about the alien threat. But the longer he stayed with Lyra, the harder it became to think about leaving. She had risked everything to save him, and now he owed her his life. "You don't have to." "Stay," Lyra said one night as they sat by the fire. "I won't force you to. But know this, if you leave, you may never see me again." Max looked at her, seeing the sadness in her eyes. She had been alone on this planet for so long, and now he was the only connection she had to the outside world. He didn't know what to say. He had promised himself he would return to Earth, but the thought of leaving Lyra behind seemed impossible. "I don't know if I can leave," Max said quietly. "You saved me. You gave me a chance when I had none." Lyra looked away, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I didn't expect you to come back for me. I didn't think I would ever see you again." Max reached out, touching her hand. He didn't have the answers, but one thing was clear. Lyra had become more than just a stranger to him. It'd become his reason for hope. Max had recovered much of his strength, but his mind was still clouded with the thoughts of the past. He knew he had to leave, that Earth needed him back. His people were at war, and the threat of the alien forces was growing every day. Yet the idea of leaving Lyra behind made his heart heavy. He had seen her sacrifice so much for him, and the bond they had formed over the weeks couldn't easily be broken. The days had turned into weeks, and Max had spent every moment with Lyra, learning more about her and the world she called home. She had shown him how to adapt to the harsh planet, how to find food, shelter, and avoid the deadly creatures that roamed the land. She had even taught him how to communicate in her language, though he still struggled with some of the words. But in her presence, everything felt safer, more peaceful. As the days passed, their conversations deepened. Lyra shared stories of her people, her past, and the struggle they faced. She had been born on a planet far away from Earth, a place filled with beauty and peace. But her world had changed when war reached their doorstep. Her people had been forced to retreat to this remote planet, hidden away from the galactic conflict. "You must think it's strange," Lyra said one evening as they sat near the fire, the stars shining brightly above them. A human and an alien, living together, surviving on a foreign world. In some ways, we're not so different. Max nodded, his mind racing with thoughts of his home. He had never thought he would find himself in this situation, sitting beside an alien who had risked everything to help him. He had been trained to fight against beings like her, not to form bonds or friendships. But here he was, struggling too. Leave the only person who had truly cared for him. "I don't know how to feel about this," Max admitted. "Part of me wants to stay and protect you. But I have a duty to my people. Earth needs me. My squad is out there fighting the war, and I can't just abandon them." Lyra understood. She had known from the beginning that his mission was more important than anything they had together. She didn't expect him to stay, but she hoped deep down that he would. However, she didn't want to force him to choose. She had made peace with the fact that Max's life was no longer hers to control. She could only offer him a chance to survive, to heal, and to live. "I understand," Lyra said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "You have a responsibility, Max. I would never ask you to give that up. But if you leave, you will leave me behind, and I don't know if I can keep going without you." Max looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. She had been alone for so long, and now, for the first time, she had someone who cared for her. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something deeper. Something Max wasn't sure he was ready for. "I'll come back for you," Max said, his voice steady. "I swear, Lyra, I'll come back. I'll find a way to bring you with me. We'll make it work." Lyra smiled faintly, though her eyes were filled with sadness. She knew he was lying to himself. The war would not end easily, and the chances of him being able to return for her were slim. Still, she didn't want to break his spirit. She wanted him to believe that they could have a future together, even if the odds were against them. "I believe you," she said quietly, though her heart ached with doubt. "But don't promise me something you can't keep. The war is coming for both of us, and the universe is a dangerous place. Can't control what happens next." Max reached for her hand, his grip firm. I know, but I can't leave you behind. Not after everything you've done for me. I owe you my life. Lyra's eyes softened. You owe me nothing, Max. I saved you because I wanted to, because you're worth saving. But I need you to understand something. She paused. Looking at the horizon where the sky was beginning to darken, the galaxy is changing. My people are fighting their own war, and they are not kind to humans. I don't know if I can protect you if you stay here much longer. Max's heart sank. He had known that Lyra's people might come after him, but hearing it from her, the one person who had shown him kindness, made it feel more real. The stakes were higher than he had imagined. You're saying that if I stay, it'll put us both in danger? He asked, his voice tight with concern. Lyra nodded. Yes, my people won't forgive me for what I've done. They believe humans are a threat to everything we've worked for. And if they find out you're here, they will hunt you down. I've already broken their laws by saving you. I can't risk further defying them. Max was silent for a long moment, the weight of her words sinking in. He wanted to stay, to fight for what they had started, but the reality of their situation was too overwhelming. If he stayed, they would both be hunted. If he left, he would be abandoning the one person who had given him a chance to survive. I'll leave tomorrow, Max said finally, his voice filled with a mixture of resignation and determination. But I won't forget you, Lyra. I'll find a way to come back. I promise. Lyra didn't speak. Instead, she reached up to touch his face, her fingers brushing his skin softly. I'll be here, Max, but when the time comes, don't come back for me if it puts you in more danger. I won't allow that. Max smiled, his heart heavy. He had made up his mind. He would leave, but a part of him would always remain with her. As he turned to leave, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was not the end of their story. There was more to be written if only they could survive the war. Max's mind was still clouded with confusion as he walked away from the campfire. Lyra's words echoed in his head. Don't come back for me if it puts you in more danger. But Max couldn't help it. He had made her a promise, and now he had to keep it. The war was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a battle for something deeper. For Lyra, for the connection they had built. The night was cold, and the air was thick with the smell of damp earth. Max knew it would be dangerous to leave, but the thought of abandoning Lyra felt even worse. His training as a soldier told him to stay focused on the mission, to think about the bigger picture. But the part of him that cared for Lyra, the part that had been saved by her, couldn't simply walk away. The next day, he packed his things, preparing to leave the alien planet. His mission was clear: return to Earth, warn them about the alien forces, and fight to protect his people. Heart was heavy, torn between duty and love. He had to be strong, for Earth, for Lyra, for everyone. But as the shuttle's engines roared to life, something deep inside told him he wasn't ready to leave yet. The journey back to Earth was long, and Max spent much of it thinking about Lyra. He couldn't shake the feeling that their time together was far from over. The war was consuming everything, and yet he still remembered the warmth of her touch, the kindness in her eyes. It had been years since their paths had crossed, but she still felt so close. When Max arrived back at the military base on Earth, he tried to bury his feelings. There was no time for distractions. The war was escalating, and he had to focus on the mission at hand. He was quickly thrust back into the chaos of battle, but in the back of his mind, Lyra remained. Meanwhile, on the alien planet, Lyra had returned to her people. Her heart was heavy with sadness, knowing that Max had left. She had told him to go, to not come back, but part of her had hoped he would stay. As the days passed, the fear of what might happen if her people found out about her betrayal grew stronger. She had broken their laws, saved a human. The consequences were severe, and Lyra knew her people would never forgive her. As much as she wanted to deny it, the truth was undeniable. Max had been her weakness. He was the one thing she cared about more than anything, and that made her a target. Her people had always been distant, their hearts hardened by years of war. They believed in their superiority and had no tolerance for human life. But Lyra, raised among them, had always felt different. She had known from the beginning that she would never fully fit in with her people's cruel ways. Her heart longed for something more, something beyond the endless fighting, and then Max had come into her life. He had been broken and lost, but he had shown her that humans, too, could be compassionate, could care for someone beyond their own kind. He had made her question everything she had ever known. Lyra was preparing for her next mission when the unexpected happened. Her contact. From the human resistance, a soldier named Ethan arrived with urgent news. The human fleet had sent out a call for help. They were struggling in their battle against the alien forces, and they needed her assistance. "We need your help, Lyra," Ethan said, his face grim. "The enemy has found a way to invade Earth's defenses. Can't hold them off much longer. Earth is on the brink of collapse, and the only way to stop this is with your knowledge. We can't do this without you." Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. The war had reached a tipping point, and she had a choice to make. She had always been on the sidelines, watching the war unfold from a distance. But now, she had the chance to make a real difference, to help Max, to help humanity. "I'll help," Lyra said, her voice firm, "but I need something in return. I need access to the human fleet. I need to find Max. If I'm going to risk everything for this, I need to know he's safe." Ethan hesitated for a moment, but nodded. "You have my word. We'll get you to him." Max, now back on Earth, was growing increasingly restless. His life had returned to its chaotic routine, filled with training, strategy, meetings, and missions. But something was missing. Lyra. He couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to find her, to bring her back. He didn't know why or how, but he knew he couldn't just let her go. He had kept his promise, warning Earth about the alien forces, but his heart wasn't fully in it. His thoughts were with Lyra, and every night he would stare up at the stars, wondering if she was out there waiting for him. As the days turned into weeks, Max began to take risks. He would slip away from the base, traveling to the places where he thought he might find her. His fellow soldiers had noticed his strange behavior, but said nothing. They assumed it was just the stress of the war weighing on him, but Max couldn't stop himself. He had promised Lyra that he would return, and he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. His feelings for her had become too strong, too real, to ignore. And deep down, he knew that if he didn't find her, he would never be whole again. In the midst of the chaos, an unexpected signal came through, an encrypted message from Lyra herself. Max couldn't believe his eyes when he saw her name appear on the screen. She was alive. She was out there somewhere. Her message was simple but clear. "Max, I'm coming for you. Hold on." Max's heart raced. She was coming. She had kept her promise, just as he had. The human resistance had been fighting back for months, but the alien forces were relentless. Max had seen firsthand how devastating the war had become. He was back on Earth, still haunted by thoughts of Lyra, but he couldn't afford to waste time. The war was at its peak, and every soldier was needed to stop the invaders. But as the days passed, Max couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He couldn't help but wonder where Lyra was and what she was doing. The universe felt strangely empty without her, and his heart ached every time he thought of her. Then, one day, an unexpected message arrived. It wasn't from the Resistance. It wasn't from Earth's commanders. It was from Lyra. Max stared at the screen, disbelief filling his mind. He had never expected to hear from her again, especially not after everything that had happened. There it was, Lyra's message, short but clear. "Max, I'm coming for you. Hold on." His heart skipped a beat. She was coming. She had kept her promise, and now the chance to reunite with her had finally come. He didn't know how, but he knew that the universe had aligned to bring them back together. He had to find her, no matter the cost. On the alien planet, Lyra had been preparing for the most dangerous mission of her life. Her people had refused to accept her decision to help the humans, and now she had to fight for her survival. She had secretly worked with the human resistance, gathering crucial intelligence about the alien invaders. But she knew that if her people found out, they would not hesitate to destroy her. She had already broken their laws by saving Max, and now She was preparing to defy them once again. The invasion had taken a terrible toll on Earth, but the aliens were not invincible. Lyra knew this better than anyone. She had witnessed their weaknesses during her time on the front lines, and she believed that the human fleet could win if they fought smart. But she needed to help them, needed to get close to their command center, to change the tide of the war. Her plan was risky. It required infiltrating the alien stronghold, taking control of their weapons systems, and disabling their advanced technology. The odds were against her, but Lyra had always been a fighter. She wasn't going to let the aliens destroy everything she cared about. Max had received the message, and he was ready to act. He couldn't sit idly by while the fate of the galaxy was decided. He had made a promise to Lyra, and now he was going to keep it. But he couldn't do it alone. He reached out to the human resistance, explaining that he had a plan to help Lyra and stop the alien forces once and for all. His commanders were skeptical at first, but when they saw the determination in his eyes, they agreed to help. Max knew the risks, but the chance to save the planet and the woman he loved was too important to pass up. The human fleet prepared for a final assault, knowing that this would be their last chance to defeat the alien invaders. But Max's mission was different. He wasn't just fighting for Earth's survival. He was fighting for Lyra. He knew that if they failed, they might never get another chance. Lyra's mission was just as dangerous. She had infiltrated the enemy base, blending in with the alien soldiers who didn't suspect her true intentions. She moved silently through the corridors, avoiding detection as she approached the control center. Every step she took was calculated, every decision critical to her success, but as she reached the main control room, she was ambushed by a group of alien guards. Lyra's heart raced as she fought back, using her combat skills to disarm and disable her attackers. She wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. She was fighting for Max, for the future they might have together. The stakes were higher than ever, and she refused to back down just as she thought she was about to be overwhelmed. A familiar voice crackled through her earpiece. "Lyra, this is Max. We're coming for you." She froze, her heart leaping in her chest. She couldn't believe it. Max was here. He had found her. Max and his team stormed the enemy base, fighting their way through alien soldiers and obstacles. They were close now, and the adrenaline was pumping through Max's veins. He didn't care about the dangers or the risks. He had one mission: to find Lyra, to bring her back. Nothing else mattered. As Max entered the control room, he saw her, Lyra, standing tall and fierce, facing down a group of alien soldiers. Her eyes met his, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. All the pain, all the struggle, faded away. They had found each other again. "Max," Lyra breathed, her voice filled with relief. "You came for me." Max didn't say a word. He just rushed to her side, taking her hand in his. "I promised I would," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Together, they fought off the remaining soldiers, clearing the way for the human fleet to take control of the base. But the battle wasn't over yet. Alien forces were still strong, and they had to act fast. Lyra and Max worked side by side, coordinating their efforts to disable the enemy's weapons and defenses. It was a race against time, and every second counted. The human fleet was preparing to launch their final strike, but they needed Lyra's expertise to ensure the success of the mission. As the countdown began, Lyra and Max shared a moment of quiet understanding. The war had taken so much from them, but they had each other now. Together, they were unstoppable. The final battle was fierce, but in the end, the human forces emerged victorious. The alien invaders were defeated, and Earth had been saved. And Lyra stood together, looking out over the battlefield. It had been a long, hard fight, but they had won. Lyra turned to Max, a soft smile on her face. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with wonder. Max smiled back, his eyes full of gratitude. "Together," he said, squeezing her hand. The war was over, but their journey had only just begun. The war had ended, but the aftermath was still unfolding. Earth had been saved from the alien forces, and the human fleet was victorious. Yet, despite the celebrations, Max couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Everything had happened so fast? It had been weeks since the final battle, but his thoughts remained on Lyra. She had saved him, and they had fought side by side to protect Earth. But something still felt incomplete. Lyra, too, was lost in her own thoughts. The war had cost her everything: her family, her people, and her past. She had been forced to leave behind everything she had known to protect the humans, to protect Max. It had been the hardest decision of her life. But now, standing beside him, she knew it had been worth it. Still, her heart ached with the weight. Of her past, she had betrayed her people, and though they had won the war, Lyra knew the consequences of her actions were far from over. Max had kept his promise to her. He had stayed by her side through the darkest moments, and together they had faced the horrors of war. But now, with Earth safe, their future felt uncertain. They both knew that they couldn't simply live in the shadows of their past. Had to face what came next together, but just as they began to find peace, an unexpected visitor arrived at their doorstep. Max was in the middle of preparing for another mission when the news came. A high-ranking officer from Earth's military had requested to meet with him. Max had no idea what the meeting was about, but when he arrived at the command center, he was taken aback by what he heard. "Max, we have a situation," the officer, Commander Harris, said, his tone grim. "We've discovered something that changes everything. There's a faction within the Resistance humans who are working with the alien remnants. They've infiltrated Earth's government and are planning to overthrow the peace we've fought so hard for. We believe you know someone who might be involved in this. A woman named Lyra." Max froze. The name hit him like a punch to the stomach. Lyra, the woman he had fought for, the woman who had saved him, was now being accused of treason. "Are you saying that Lyra?" Max started, but Commander Harris cut him off. "We don't know for sure, but we need you to help us. We need to find out if she's involved in this plot. If she's not, then we can clear her name. But if she is, Max, this will affect everything. The entire alliance with the humans will collapse." Max's heart raced. This was impossible. Lyra could never betray him, could never betray Earth. She had risked everything to help them, and now they were accusing her of working with the enemy. It didn't make sense. "I can't believe this," Max said, his voice shaking with disbelief. "Lyra would never do that. She's been with me every step of the way. She's fought for Earth, for humanity." "I hope you're right," Commander Harris said, his voice cold. "But until we know for sure, we need to keep her under surveillance." Max returned to the camp, his mind racing. He couldn't fathom what was happening. Lyra was his ally, his friend, his partner. She had been his saving grace during the war, and now they were treating her like a criminal. He couldn't understand how things had gotten so twisted. He found Lyra sitting by the fire, her eyes distant. She looked up as he approached, and a look of worry crossed her face. She could tell something was wrong. "Max, what's going on?" she asked softly. Max took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. He couldn't tell her the whole truth. Not yet. "Lyra, there's been some talk. They're accusing you of working with the alien remnants. They think you might be part of a plot to overthrow Earth's government." Her face went pale, and she stood up quickly, her eyes wide with shock. "What? That's insane." "They think that?" "I don't know," Max said, his voice tight. "But they're serious. They're watching you now, and if we don't prove your innocence, they'll—" He stopped himself. He didn't want to say it, but he knew the consequences. The humans were ruthless when it came to betrayal. If they found her guilty, she could be executed. Lyra stepped back, her face a mixture of fear and confusion. "Max, I didn't do anything." "You know I didn't." Max nodded, his heart breaking. "I believe you, but we have to prove it. I'll do whatever it takes to help you. We'll figure this out together." Over the next few days, Max worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. He searched through records, spoke to contacts in the Resistance, and tried to piece together what had happened. Every time he came close to the truth, something seemed to slip away, as though there were invisible forces at work trying to keep Lyra in the shadows. Meanwhile, Lyra spent her days in isolation, her heart heavy with the weight of the accusation. She knew that her past, her history, made her a target, She had always known that the consequences of her actions might one day catch up with her, but she never imagined it would be like this. One night, as Max returned to the camp after another long day of searching for answers, he found Lyra sitting alone, her face pale and tired. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Max, I didn't do this," she said, her voice breaking. "I've never betrayed you. I've never betrayed Earth. But they'll never believe me, will they? I'm an alien, Max. To them, I'll always be the enemy." Max kneeled beside her, taking her hands in his. "I believe you," he said firmly. "We'll prove it. I won't let them take you from me. I won't let them destroy everything we fought for." Lyra looked at him, her eyes searching his face for the truth in his words. She didn't know what would happen next, but in that moment, she knew one thing for certain. Max had risked everything for her once before, and now she would risk everything for him. Max couldn't sleep. His mind was filled with thoughts of Lyra, the accusations against her, and the impossible task of proving her innocence. Despite everything he had done, every conversation, every step he had taken, the truth still eluded him. But one thing was clear: he wasn't going to give up on her. The days that followed were filled with tension. Max worked tirelessly, looking for clues, speaking to anyone who might have information. But every time he thought he had a lead, it turned out to be a dead end. The authorities were getting more suspicious, and their patience was running thin. They wanted answers, and they wanted them now. Lyra, too, had been struggling. Her world had been turned upside down. The people she had once called family now saw her as a traitor, someone who had betrayed her own kind. The weight of the accusations was heavy, and every time she looked at Max, she saw the pain in his eyes. He was caught in the middle, forced to choose between his duty to Earth and his loyalty to her. One evening, as Max was preparing for yet another meeting with the Resistance leaders, he received a call from an unexpected source. It was Lyra. "I need to see you," she said urgently. "I found something that could prove my innocence." Max's heart skipped a beat. After days of searching, this was the breakthrough he had been waiting for. "Hey, where are you? I'll come to you. I'll be waiting by the old ruins where we first met. Come alone." Max didn't hesitate. He knew he couldn't trust anyone else with this. He had to go to her. He had to see this through. The journey to the ruins felt longer than it should have. Max's mind raced with questions, doubts, and hopes. He had no idea what Lyra had found, but he knew it was important. Had to be. When he arrived, he found her standing near the broken stone walls, the wind blowing through her hair. She looked as if she hadn't slept in days, her eyes tired but determined. Max could see the toll the accusations had taken on her. But he also saw the same woman who had risked everything for him, the woman he had fought for, the woman he had promised to return to. "Lyra," he called softly, stepping closer. Turned to him, her expression serious. "I found something in the alien archives, a record, a communication between the alien remnants and the humans who were involved in the Resistance. It's proof that there's someone else who is trying to frame me." Max felt a surge of hope. "What does it say?" Lyra handed him a small device, the screen displaying a series of encrypted messages. Max's heart raced as he studied them. The messages were clear, but they were also disturbing. There were plans to sabotage the peace between humans and aliens. And the messages pointed to a human collaborator, someone from Earth's military. Working with the alien remnants, Max's mind went into overdrive. The pieces were starting to fall into place. This wasn't just about Lyra. Someone was using her as a scapegoat, planting false evidence to frame her for a betrayal that she didn't commit. The truth was out there, but it was buried deep. "I knew it," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with relief. "I knew I wasn't the one who was betraying them. Someone else is trying to turn everyone against me." Max's heart ached for her. "We'll prove it. We'll make them see the truth." But Lyra shook her head. "No, Max. It's too dangerous now. I can't stay here. They'll come for me, and they'll come for you too. You've already risked too much." Max took a step closer, his voice firm. "I don't care about the risks. We're in this together, Lyra. We always have been." For a moment, Lyra's eyes softened, and she looked as if she was about to say something, but then the sound of distant footsteps reached their ears. Max turned sharply, his instincts kicking in. They were being followed. "Get down," he ordered, pulling Lyra behind the cover of the ruins. They crouched low, the shadows offering them a brief moment of concealment. Max's heart pounded as he listened to the footsteps grow louder. He could hear voices, but they were still too far away to make out any words. Whoever was coming wasn't supposed to find them. Lyra's hand brushed against his, and he turned to see her looking at him with a mixture of fear and gratitude. "They're coming for us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have to leave now," Max nodded, his mind already working on their next move. They couldn't stay here, not with the enemy so close. "Follow me," he said, grabbing her hand and pulling her along. They moved quickly, darting from cover to cover, staying low and out of sight. Max's mind raced as he thought of the next steps. They needed to get to the resistance. They needed to expose the real traitor before it was too late. As they approached the edge of the ruins, a small clearing opened up ahead. Max could see a vehicle in the distance, the silhouette of a soldier standing next to it. He didn't recognize the person, but he could tell by their posture that they were waiting for something or someone. Max and Lyra exchanged a glance. They had no choice but to make a run for it. The vehicle was their only chance at escape. "On three," Max whispered. 1, 2, 3. They broke from cover, sprinting towards the vehicle. But before they could reach it, the soldier turned. Spotting them, a shout echoed in the air, and the soldier began to run toward them. Max's heart raced as he grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward the vehicle. "Hurry," shouted. The soldier was getting closer, and Max could hear the sound of a weapon being drawn. They were almost there. The vehicle was only a few meters away. Just as the soldier lunged toward them, Max and Lyra reached the vehicle. Max jumped into the driver's seat, pulling Lyra in beside him, slammed the engine into gear, and they sped off, leaving the soldier behind. As the vehicle raced through the wilderness, Max couldn't help but glance at Lyra. She was safe for now, but they both knew that the fight wasn't over. The real battle was just beginning.